Welcome to episode 247, the mindset behind building a $50 million international business with Giovanni Gubbels. Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvis, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. Today, I am super excited to be connecting with a great friend, amazing leader, international business owner, and just an overall heart-centered, amazing individual in Giovanni Gubbels. Hope I pronounced that right. Gio and I had the luxury and the privilege of meeting last year at Warrior Retreats, which a lot of you know I've talked about at great length, and we vibed down there, and this year we started working together, and it's just been an honor to watch you grow and to see the impact that you've made, not only in the Netherlands, but now expanding into an international business and doing business here in the States now. And Gio flew into Vegas today, and so we're sitting live in person. This rarely happens on the podcast. Mostly it's like a Zoom interview. So Gio, thank you for making the trek, man, and super proud of just everything that you've been doing this year and even before. And I'm excited to gather and extract the wisdom that you've learned throughout your life. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my life, and let's see what we can create here today.
Yeah, super excited. Also really happy to be here. So thank you for that. And I think you already started off pretty well today. So yeah, it's crazy that it's already 12 months ago that we met for the first time.
Yeah. It's wild, man. Time flies, and then it flies, and then it doesn't. Right? I feel like as soon as I saw you, that time condensed. You know, I was like, I feel like I just saw you in person. So let's get the audience to know you pretty quickly. So I have a few questions outlined for you here. Do your best to answer them quick and in a hurry, and then we'll jump into the meat. But where were you born and raised?
I'm born in the Caribbean, Curaçao, and raised in the Netherlands around Eindhoven.
Okay. Beautiful.
So that's also because of the last name is a little bit more tough to pronounce.
It is. I used a G, and he's like, no, the G's silent. I was like, oh, okay, got it. Okay, what is a philosophy that you live by?
A philosophy I live by. To be able to get, you need to give.
That's great. What is your definition of failure?
Not trying.
Yeah, beautiful. What's a piece of advice that you've received recently that has served you well, either personally or professionally?
I think it has a little bit to do with what I just said, with giving and getting, and also like trying. It's if you don't do anything today, then tomorrow will be the same as yesterday. And that's something what really touched base with me. Yeah, beautiful. What's one skill that you are harnessing or cultivating or trying to strengthen right now? Mainly the technique of listening differently.
Yeah. Listening's huge as a leader.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay, last question. What does the world need more of?
So, that's a good one. What the world needs more of? Okay, that one you took me by surprise.
Yeah.
But I think what the world needs more is like a common cause, a common goal. I think that's really important. If you look around us, how everything is going in society, everyone is so busy in his own bubble, and we talk a lot about sustainability. We talk about like what's going on everywhere in the world, and things needs to change, etc., etc. But if you look at the big corporates and the smaller businesses, everyone is only busy with making more money, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we have now the sustainability goals, etc., etc., which could be, in my eyes, a common goal we can have all together as a person and as companies. But it's still like far away from where it should be. So.
You know, what that makes me think of is in relationships and in societies, you have like dependency, independence, and then interdependence. And a lot of the countries, more so in the East, tend to be, or at least a lot of them in Africa that I've studied, are very interdependent, meaning like they are very community driven. They care about the tribe, and all their goals are for the sustainability of the community. Whereas on the West, you have more silos, people who are acting for themselves, or maybe more just they want to be independent. They're lone wolves. They don't work well in teams. And so to your point, I do think that there is value in that interdependence where we can leverage each other's skill sets to solve very big problems. So, yeah, I agree with you. Cool. So before you became this international businessman and this powerful leader, take us back to what it was like to grow up. You know, like what did you see from your parents? What was your environment like? What values were you raised on?
A lot of social values. So I think I grew up in a really safe environment, with family close around me. My dad was a Marine, or still is, for a few more months, and then he goes with early retirement. But so yeah, I think it was really like a manly surrounding when he was home, but he was also really often away because of his job, of course. So I bonded really well with my mom. But later on, because of also having your father figure away and back and away and back, I also started changing behavior because of that. Because my dad had different expectations. He was really overprotecting, setting high targets, which I still love to do. But also looking back, it also changed my behavior. And at a certain moment, I also pushed my mom a little bit more away because she knew me too well. She really felt me if my energy came into the room, if there was something. So yeah, for me, that was a little bit like, oh, that's dangerous. Because then if there is something, my mom will know, my dad will know, etc., etc. So there, I think I struggled a lot with through the years. And my mom always said to me as well, like, you're not Gio. And like a few years ago, as now I'm like 5 years really in the business of mindset, working on myself, getting to know myself, getting to know what happens, etc., etc. Yeah, the biggest compliment I got was that my mom said like, "Hey, you're back," and it was crazy to hear.
Yeah. What were some of the lessons that you learned when you were a child that you still operate with today that has like helped you?
Yeah, so a big thing my dad always said was like assumptions. It's like don't make assumptions. Everyone makes them. That's also with the listening part. If you're not listening carefully to someone else, you're gonna start making assumptions, and there's where a lot of things are going wrong. So having that said, also with the pressure and all the time like better, no finish line, etc., etc. To get what you want, you need to give. So you need to work for it. You need to do it. You need to try it. A lot is coming back on there. Like keep on going, keep on challenging, keep on growing.
Yeah. And you played sports obviously when you were younger, and it seems like soccer was a big staple for you and maybe your family. But with soccer, you excelled pretty quickly, and I believe you made it to the professional level in soccer, right?
So yeah, close to I would say. It's a hard topic today as we got kicked out of the World Cup yesterday by Argentina.
Right. Sore spot.
But no, yeah, I started pretty young, and I think I could play quite some ball for sure on amateur level. And I think the biggest learning curve was there, like the struggle with my dad again, and father figure and coaches and everything. And I think through that experiences, like really the commitment came, like you need to do things for yourself and not for others. So I'm actually really glad that I'm not playing soccer anymore. I'm also not missing it anymore. But yeah, I played a few years in like Belgium, the country nearby. I played indoor soccer really high on like the professional level. But that was way back in the days when it was not as big as it is now. Got closely to the national squad in indoor soccer, but there sort of my career ended as well with when I broke my ankle. But I think things happen for a reason, and looking to soccer, I met a mentor who's still really important in life, and I think everyone needs to have one and will have one. But through him, I got into logistics, and that's where I'm now building my company in since 4 years. And I'm still in contact with him, and he's really proud as well, like my dad too. And it's crazy how things can go, because before I went into logistics, I never thought about it, never heard about it on school. Supply chain was completely new. And then I started realizing, like, yeah, it's such a thing that if I go to the grocery store, the things are there, or that I order something and it gets to my doorstep. And like everything what we wear, what we see around us is like, it comes from somewhere. It's manufactured somewhere. It goes to somewhere you buy it, and then to your home or what else. It's crazy if you go know what's going on the background.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you think that? Well, I guess I don't want to assume. Do you? It sounds like sports really helped you craft or strengthen a really helpful mindset that you then translated to business. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think in sports, you need to practice. You need to keep doing it, getting better every day. You get to work with disappointments. You cannot do it alone, because it's in soccer, you are with 11 people on the pitch, you have people on the bench, etc., etc. You really need to do it together. But the mentality, if you look at the professionals, and we all know the names, and it's in all the types of sports, you need to keep challenge yourself to grow. You need to keep doing the practice. You need to keep having your routine and being strong to not like gonna do the fun stuff, because you need to be there at the moment it happens. And I think that really resonates as well with like business owners who are running businesses. For me, it's like running a business is top sport mentality.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, it will be hard.
Yeah. Do you think that parents, when raising their children, should place them in some sort of sport? Do you think that would be, there'd be more benefits than to, let's say, more pros than cons?
If they like sports?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
yes.
Fair.
Yes. I think it really helps to do like individual sports and team sports. But at the end, it's about the individual. So if they are not into it, they are not into it.
Sure.
But there are several other things I really believe in. You can craft it and experience it and learn it, but it needs to be in you.
Yeah.
And if you are excited about something, it happens automatically, because you just get energized and look at yourself always. It's like you keep on going, keep on running.
Yeah.
As long as the rest of the cause.
Sports has helped me become who I am. Teamwork, discipline, practice, receiving feedback from a coach, just working towards something, like all that helps. So I always, if to your point, like if a child feels aligned to sports, I always think it's a great place to put them. Making sure that the coach obviously is demonstrating some good communication skills, because that also can traumatize some people too.
Leading by example.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so you were in soccer, you met your mentor, and then taught you some logistics, and that's what helped you segue into creating what is now ChainCargo. So for those who are just learning about you for the first time and what you do at an international level, give us a little small breakdown of what ChainCargo does, and that way everyone listening has a deeper understanding of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, ChainCargo is actually a tech company. We are creating software for the logistics space. The service, what we offer is like organizing transportation from A to B for shippers, for trucking transportation, for vans, etc., etc. And the thing we really do differently than others is that we really focus on the carrier. If you look worldwide, but I take the US for an example, there are a lot of trucking companies, but 98% is like only existing out of 20 trucks or less. So imagine that a lot of trucking companies do their planning and their organizations on Excel. Other ones do it in an old system, or they use a SaaS model or anything. But imagine that all those different companies are like having their own planning, their own customers, their own agents, etc., etc. It means that the market is really fragmented. And we all know, at least the people in logistics, that there is a lot of empty kilometers and mileage, a lot of dead mileage, how we call it, which are paid but not filled, but also like a lot of empty mileage, which is just not filled because they don't have a load. Over the last years, we have like a lot of capacity issues, and I think there there's where you already go wrong. Like there is capacity, but we don't know where. And I think there's where we come into the space where we are building software which we want to give out to the market for free in return of the data, so we can make the invisible visible and start really optimizing and utilizing the existing capacity on the road to flatten the climate curve and lower down the footprint in the supply chain.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. What has being in business at this level? Let me start with this. How do you view business? Like just when you look at someone who owns a business and potentially solves a problem, how do you look at that? How do you view that?
Yeah, great question. For me, I not always have the feeling that I'm running a business.
Yeah.
There are a lot of stuff which makes me feel it's a business.
Right.
But that is like the less fun side of it.
Yes.
No, but for me, it's really important that you are aware what you are trying to solve. And what I really believe in, what I try to solve, is bigger than what my targeted avatar audience is, which is paying for the services. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy that I was able to pivot the problem I saw and the thing I want to solve, like the emissions and logistics, to a way that we can really impact that and making money without like having that part as a moneymaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When did it take you a while to find out the problem that you're solving with your company now? Or was it a series of like brainstorming sessions that then led to the problem? Or did you see it immediately and like, I need to create something around this?
So yeah, I think also if you look at my core values, one is of them as being of service. So I'm really like open to help people and to change things and really be there. And I've been working like for 8 years for logistical companies. And in Europe, we have a lot of different countries, really close to each other, and everyone has his own profit and loss, their own targets, etc., etc. Although it's one big company. So imagine being in one big hotel and everyone in his own room can do his own stuff, like normally, but then in a company. So although you have like growth targets, everyone wants to do the growth target on his expense and not on the other one's expense. Mm-hmm. So bottom line, if you would look like, there's a lot of inefficiency where you can optimize stuff, etc., etc. So by learning that firsthand, I thought, if you cannot already do it in your own company, how would you do it globally, outside of the walls? And if I already see that there is so much unused capacity here, how would it be if it's like outside of the walls again? Like, and why is it not happening? And there I started learning by doing, like, we just don't have the data. It's not available. So if I really want to make that impact on sustainability-wise, the only thing how I can do it is to make it visible and get the data. But there are companies without technology. There are companies with technology A up to Z. It's insane. So yeah, and there's where the ball started rolling. And I'm not sure who told me it, but it was probably from a book or something. But strategy is always created afterwards. But you need to start.
That's good. That reminds me of missions are greater than plans, because plans always mostly fail where missions don't, right? The mission of like, I'm going to get this. I don't know how, but it activates resourcefulness that then causes the strategy to shift as you continue to move forward. And I'm an example of what you're saying of like, I didn't have a strategy of building what I've built here and with what I do. I just knew I wanted to help people, and I went to go door knock. I'm like, hi, my name's James. I can help you with your company. Like, that was the strategy. And then as I got more and more involved, then I started seeing the subtleties, and then was able to like anticipate more or have just be more effective in those types of spaces. So what you're talking about is accurate. It also requires a lot of courage.
A lot of courage and a lot of stubbornness.
Yeah.
And a lot of stubbornness.
Because some people may not see what you see, and that stubbornness is what can convince someone to see it that way and then follow you. Like, that's like casting a vision and enrolling someone into your belief system. Talk to me about those early days when you're like, there's a big problem here. I can help solve this. I need help. I need to partner with someone, or I need people to be on my team. Like, how was that? What were those days like?
Yeah, you need to imagine that I quitted my corporate job. I was, I think, 24, 25, and I quitted my corporate job to start for myself. Started doing some consultancy, and eventually a year later, starting really ChainCargo. So I was also convincing myself still that I could do it. But yeah, I think through the full journey, if you really hear people who start working with you, you are hiring and stuff, that's already like a game changer. That people are leaving their job to work with you in your company, in exchange for salary, of course. But
sure.
But still, that they make that leap where you don't have anything. You don't have any customers yet. You still need to build the software. You just have a story, and they believe in it. So I think, yeah, that's something that really touched me in a certain point. Certainly, when I see where we are now, like we have a lot of different nationalities in our company, and I think that's also what makes us successful today. Everyone is really committed to really make that impact, make that change. So coming back to your question, yeah, I think the most difficult thing was like venture capitalists. So we really tried, my partners and myself, to all the money we earned on consultancy on the side, because we were sort of running two businesses, to pay all the salaries, to keep growing, match the venture capitalist with the amount they wanted to do to get really like the funding in. And the further you get, your focus is also gonna shift. Revenue is getting more important. Growth figures are getting more important. You get more opinions because you get more people who also have their ideas, who also have their problems at home.
Sure.
So yeah, you get to deal with a lot of more stuff. And for me, really, I think we grew really hard. We did a really good job. But for me in Peru last year was really a shift. And for me there was like no compromises anymore. That was a really important one. And it also reminded me like, dude, you started 3 years ago with this mission and you're only focusing on revenue and margins. Where is your mission? So this year for me was really important to get that back. So with a group within the company, we also were reworking on the culture. So what I noticed is that I really pushed my core values as a person within the company, which is not bad. But a culture is something what naturally exists and gets from the behavior of people together in the room.
Yeah.
So I called from several departments people in the room, and I let them tell the culture they were feeling and the core values they thought were fitting the company, and not because what I thought, no, because what they experience. And bringing back the mission more, like, hey, why did you join in the beginning? Yeah, because of the mission. And do you think that we emphasize it enough and that the focus is there? And then some people said yes, and some people said no. And I think that was really important. And I think we made tremendous steps in the last months to really get it out. And also in the latest partnership we signed with our new shareholder, which also enables us to go to the US. I think it was a really strong point as well, which I'm till the day of today I'm really protecting, to keep that mission and translating the mission back into business values and business strategies, which get to the goals of the investor, get to the goal of our company, because we need to make money to be able to grow and really make that impact eventually. So yeah.
Yeah. So with all of that, what are some things that people don't think about, or you think that they should try and think about before getting into business? So what I hear in your story is that you've had massive growth and it's happened very fast, and maybe at a pace that's like dizzying at first. You're like, oh, so now we're here, and like you're just, there's no time to stop, right? Because the momentum is just picking up so fast. With that, what do you think people don't hear about that would be helpful for them to understand, so that they have more context or awareness before starting a business and going all in on it?
Yeah, that's also a good question again. I think there are several factors in play. So, and it's purely personally, because I don't know how that is for others. But I'm not a writer. I'm more a doer. So I'm not from like big fancy business plans, no doing and crafting it on the way, and just trying and keep on pivoting on the experiences you have. That for me is really a big thing. But as I also said, like top sport mentality, you will get setbacks. So be prepared of that. I think it was Brian Donovan who said that a few years ago when he was on a retreat in Long Island. Running a business is going from crisis to crisis. You only need to manage to have the crisis as small as possible and see it coming on time. I think over the last years, if we know what happened with COVID, if we see with all the lockdowns, what we now see in Europe with the war, unfortunately, that are really like big things in the market which you cannot see coming. But imagine like in your own market, in your own business, in your own team, everything, there's constantly so much going on. Yeah. And you're constantly on such a high pace. And what I think I should have done myself differently is ease out a little bit more, like take more the distance, trying to work more at my business than in my business. And I know it's really hard because it's your baby. Yeah. You also need to have the resources to be able to work at the business instead of the business. So hiring experience, really important. Do it as early as possible. Seems expensive maybe in your budget, but it delivers so much back and gives you the rest, the ease to really focus on the bigger picture.
I heard something recently from a documentary called Stutz on Netflix. Jonah Hill, the actor, had gone through some therapy over the course of, a year and a half, and he documented it and created this movie. And in there, he's a psychotherapist and I think a psychologist. And one of the things he said in that movie was really it really made me think. And he said there's 3 things that life deals you that you can't get out of: pain, uncertainty, and work. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Right?
It resonates too much.
Right. And what you were saying is like it's from crisis to crisis, right? From, I would say, pain and uncertainty to pain and uncertainty. And so what I gather from what you said was, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, your ability to handle pain and uncertainty will dictate how well your business, or even if you want to go even granular to someone's life, how well your life will go. Right? So that there's a lot of factors in that. That could be energy management, how well you manage your energy through boundaries, through recovery, all of that. There's the strategy part. There's the recruiting and making sure the right people are on the team in the right places. But fundamentally, it's how well are we at managing crisis?
How conscious are you?
What's that?
How conscious are you?
Right.
And that's the really biggest thing, because what you said as well, like if you are not in that control and you start slipping away because of the thing,
yes,
everyone will know it around you.
Yes.
In your family, friends, but even worse, in your business.
Yes.
And if they start to doubt, yeah.
Right.
Then
and
it starts.
People start losing the vision. The culture crumbles. They start being inefficient, and then maybe they get poached by somebody else who's painting a stronger vision than you are, right? So then you can lose top talent.
Yeah.
How do you help maintain that level of maybe conviction or certainty, or let's say that the top athlete, top sport mindset that you were talking about? What are some things that have helped you either strengthen that or keep that at a high level?
What personally helped me is that since I started the company, I got really coaching for mindset, for my own traumas, business coaching, like I really experienced with you as well, which really helped. But yeah, it's sometimes really hard because you don't see it always yourself. And that's why I also came back to the coaching. Like, if I go back into those days there I come to the point from your question, is like, I always have been doing it myself in logistics for 8 years. So I really knew from the bottom up to what I was doing, like every detail. And I think that helped till today, that everyone around me also sees me like he is doing the job. He's leading by doing and not by telling or instructing.
Yes.
And I think that's the answer to your question for me personally, is like, yeah, you're not doing it alone, But the rest is also not doing it for you. You need to do it together. And you need to play as a team. And everyone has his role.
Yeah.
And if somebody has a bad day, you need to step in. If it's me, if it's someone else. And I hope they do that for me too. And I think that's something in our culture we are building, that we are taking care of each other. Not only about the job we are doing, but also like on the Friday afternoon with a drink. Hey, how are you doing? What are your plans for the weekend? On the Monday, how was your weekend?
Yeah.
And also like, hey, take a day off if you have like a bad day.
Yeah.
Better take a day off. No worries. Take it off. Than in 3 weeks having like, it's such a bad 3 weeks. I'm not happy. I'm not delivering, etc., etc. Because that's the spiral you don't want to have.
Right. And that's one of the things that I respect about those that have businesses outside of America. Because in America, it's like, I hired you for a job, get the job done, regardless of maybe what's going on in that person's personal life. And maybe there's context to that. But for the most part, I think a lot of people feel like numbers in the companies that they work for, as opposed to feeling seen, heard, and understood. And a lot of the work that I do when I come in and work with companies is really creating that psychological safety where the person feels valued, they feel appreciated, they feel seen, heard, understood, so that the information and the communication is strong and efficient. So if you don't have that, then there's a lot of information gaps. So you don't really know what's going on, and a lot of breakdowns can happen without you being aware.
Been there, done that. That was one of the reasons I quitted my corporate job. Like, I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel appreciated, and I was working my ass off. And I felt like a number. And I think this is something which is really embedded into society, because it starts already when you are getting born. You get a social security number. You get to the world and you get a number. Even as fast as that, you get a name from your parents.
That's true.
So if you think about it, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So how bigger the company, how it's normal that you will be a number, because for them it's a numbers game. How bigger the investment, how bigger the numbers, how more important is return of investment. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
that's
so try to keep it small.
Yeah. So when we talk about the pain and the uncertainty and the strength and maybe the resilience that it takes to get through those or to work through those, I think of it as like a mental strength, an emotional strength, and then even a physical strength. Of those three strengths, which one do you think you have the most intimate relationship with, or which one of those is higher than the others?
Can you repeat them?
Yeah, mental strength.
Mental, yeah,
right?
definitely.
So the way you think, emotional strength, so the way you process your emotion, what you feel, and then the physical strength of just being able to maybe endure or have the capacity to and the energy to do something.
Yeah, now I know why I needed to hear it for the third time, because I was so resonating with every one of them.
Yeah,
they're
was
all
like, important.
These are like the pillar.
Maybe use them at different times.
Yeah,
but
exactly. So if you also look around me with friends who are talking to me, like in the business, I think mentally I'm really strong. But yeah, the physical part is also like be able to keep on going, and that's also where other people come in a lot, where they say like, hey, should you not slow down? And sometimes I don't see it myself either, because I'm a man on a mission, which I think like if I now quit, then it can be, but we will always get there. In the sense of we will always get on the point that we think that that needs to happen now. Yeah. And that's something I really mentally and physically need to work on, and that's because of the third pillar, emotionally. I have a lot of growth to do, and I think I already made a lot of growth. But for me, it's really easy to put things away and like later. Yeah. Let's continue. Yes. But on the other hand, and that's the sort of funny side of it, the flip side, people who know me, they also know me that I really care. Yeah. About them, what they do, how they are feeling. So the example I just gave about go home, take care of yourself, I really do that, but not for myself. So that's something, yeah, you know me. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing I need to work on, and I really gonna focus on that next year. Yeah. And now I really gonna want to go to like a year never ends, but in numbers again it does. Yeah. But for me it's like the go live of the US market is for me like really like the finish line for me to then reset, get back into my routine, and also emotionally, physically, and mentally. Take a few steps back to really recharge. Yeah, you said something earlier. You said there's no finish line. And I think that you said that came from your dad. Yeah. And
when that is a belief system and a philosophy, which I do agree with because I view it very similarly, then what becomes important is longevity, right? How long can you last?
Yeah.
How far can you go and how long can you last? And what that comes down to is all three of those strength domains, right? You got to be able to see something and hold that very strongly, regardless of all the distraction and the clutter. You have to be able to manage your emotion through setback, through pain, and through uncertainty, and maybe the doubts that could arise in multiple situations. And then you have to have the physical capacity, your health, and your endurance to be able to outlast competitors or even outlast who you were yesterday. And so I think about what are the fundamentals of like strengthening those areas, and what would leaders need to focus on in each of those areas. But if I were to pick one that I think is what most people need to focus on because they don't participate in it or they don't think about it as much, it would be the emotional domain. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'd love to get your take on this, I think most people look at emotions and see liabilities. That if I get too feely, if I really start to think about it, then I'll change or I'll lose my momentum or, whatever the story is. And I think that if you don't look at it, that's actually what will happen, and maybe even faster. Because as you grow, you're going to experience new things. And in those new territories, old programs are going to emerge. New triggers are going to be, revealed to you. And if you don't process that, all the success that you're building may just blow up eventually. What do you think about that?
Yeah, emotions are big. They come out of nothing, and it really influences behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're mentally not aware, not conscious, and you don't deal properly with it, it can really be biting yourself in the ass in the wrong moment.
Right.
So taking the time, sitting with your emotions, learning of the experiences you had, it's definitely key. It's definitely key.
Yeah. I mean, as much as we like to think that we're logical beings, we're definitely more on the emotional side. And to the psychological safety part and to what you're trying to create in your culture, the more connection you have with your team, the more you're going to sense where their emotion is off. And you'll be able to catch it early as opposed to waiting 6 months and now that person is leaving the company or they just made a massive problem because they're not focusing. And, there's a lot that can happen there.
Yeah, but it's also like, how far do you want to go? Because yes, emotionally, but for me, when the first person left the company, I felt it personally that he left me, for example, or she left me. And how more you get into the business, you also take that differently because everyone is in their own path and need to choose for themselves. And we are so good in complaining. Everyone is able to complain. If we could build businesses around complaining, I think everyone would be like...
Yeah.
But the thing is, and we have seen it in Peru, there are a lot of people there which we try to help. And they are in a situation without any choice.
Mm-hmm.
People who are getting sick, they didn't choose for it. People who are born somewhere without almost no family, who can take care of them, no money. It's not their choice. And every time what I try to do, and that's also again then mentally, but because of the emotional side, which I experienced, like if there is a choice and you don't make one, never complain. And there I come back to the finish line story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I always took it as a negative thing. There is no finish line, so I need to work harder. But what it actually is saying, there is no finish line, so you not always need to be there first. Because there is no finish line.
How do you know? Yeah, if it's never over, then
so
how do you place?
Give yourself the time, the space, sometimes to reflect as well.
Mm-hmm.
And think of, how was my last year? We are in December now. Christmas is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So ask yourself the question, am I proud of what I did? And maybe even better, where do I want to be next year? When can I say 2023 was my year?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just go in, day out, doing their thing. They think they are happy, and they probably will be. But if there is no finish line, and you need to create at least for yourself some measurements to say I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Progress. Yeah. Without progress, we can get in our heads and get stale and complacent and really blow up. So I agree with that. so we talked about pain and uncertainty. On the uncertainty side, how do you handle that? Because every day there's going to be a new challenge that you maybe can't foresee that you have to deal with, right? Or in this case, 2019 going into 2020. I mean, I don't know anyone who could have predicted what we were going to experience. So, as a leader, as a CEO, as someone who people look to in times of crisis, how do you handle that?
Yeah, for me, flexibility and adjustment is key, and yeah, I think it's also a mindset thing.
Yes.
Like, I really struggle with the fact this is not possible, or it's not gonna work, or it doesn't work like this.
Yeah. Like when people say that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine that it maybe doesn't work or what else, but I want to hear what's possible.
Yes.
So if I ask, for example, to you, like, drink that full bottle of water at once, and you say like, hey, that's not possible. You can also suggest like, maybe that's a little bit too much, but let's take it in several zips.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a stupid example, but my mind only works constantly, and that's why I struggle with it. Like, if something happens, I'm only thinking about the possibilities. And if we then talk about uncertainty, to deal with uncertainty makes it easier if you are wired like that.
Yes.
Because things happen, and I try to, how can I adapt?
Right.
Are there new opportunities? Where can I shift my energy? Where do I need to shift the things around me to get further? And constantly create rest for everyone.
Yeah.
Because if you panic, the rest will panic.
So calming other people with the way that you're perceiving the situation.
Yeah.
Right. When did that when did you create that? When did you notice that that's how you thought about uncertainty? Was that from like a young age?
I really think it came during the last years of ChainCargo.
Okay. So you didn't always have this. This is something that once you got into business, you realized you needed to cultivate and then started working on it.
No, not at all. Because I always was in a job where I had my own goals, my own targets, and I was working alone. And it was always promoting quickly, getting to my targets, achieving my goals, but I was working sort of alone. And since I'm like building my own company, hiring people, building teams, I started noticing like my normal is not the normal of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big struggle I still have, because for me it's like, yeah, but it's logic, right? This is how it works. And also hearing people, because I cannot make all the ideas myself, all the solutions myself, like, oh yeah, what you want is not possible. Yeah, okay, but how could we get there?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not now, but in the future. And yeah, over the years, I also learned like create that safe environment for the people around you. So let them tell them their ideas, let them tell what they think is not possible, and then eventually say like, okay, scrap all the walls, all the rules you know. How would it look like if you could use your full imagination and don't need to consider anything?
Mm-hmm.
And then people start to get creative.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get really new things on the things where they are the expert in.
Yeah.
And I just try then to manage them, guide them in the right direction.
Yeah.
And create something out of it.
Yeah.
Because people need help sometimes to get started.
They
because
do.
we are sometimes a little bit locked in the way of we do what we do.
Yeah.
Instead of moving
So you
forward.
and I are similar in the fact that when we face challenges, we'll find solutions to what we're facing. And then also we want to help people also find their solutions to the problems that they're facing, right? And I think you and I both view that as a form of service.
Yeah.
Right? Helping people become better because we know by being better, you'll have more value to add and you'll feel better about the progress and all that stuff. But where did that come from? So you talked about your dad having high standards and pushing you to higher highs. Do you think that maybe it came from that, or was it that mixed with like when you were playing soccer and the philosophy that got built there? Because you were always that type of person. It sounds like that had a goal and was like, I'm gonna get the goal. Like that's it. There's no other option of me not getting the goal. I'm gonna go get it. So when did that start?
I think it has to do with the relationship with my dad. So, not to forget my mom positively,
Right.
I think.
Sure. We'll get to her next.
I think the listening part and like sometimes being a little bit blunt in the way, like direct. without thinking, like just doing it. That's I think I really have that from my mom. My dad is a Marine, as I said, so he is like danger. If there is danger, we need to look for options out. So that's like create safety.
Yes.
And I'm more like going towards the danger and seeing how I can pivot around it.
Yes.
So going back like to the old days, I think it had always been in me, because I started changing my behavior to have not the confrontation with my dad. So because my dad was making decisions out of protection towards me, because of a lot of love, which is of course beautiful. Everyone wants that. But he was also sort of making decisions for me, which made it tough. So I had the choice to go against it. And then if it would go wrong, he would say, I told you so. Or I could just do it, because then at least it was his decision. So no discussion. Or you could pivot around it.
Yeah.
And unconsciously is that what I started to do, which I now, I think, really profit from.
Absolutely.
But during my growing up, it was different. When I was like getting older, able to go to the bar, do the stuff, like you start pivoting around a lot of things which are normally you don't think about. So I think there was a really big learning curve, which has made me to who I am today. And there's still a big curve to come, but here it is again, like you need to get to know yourself. And I never really knew myself. And I think that over the last few years, that's coming more and more.
Yeah.
And it's also constantly changing because you learn.
Sure.
But that's why it's that important to keep on getting to stay connected to yourself, get to know yourself. And I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
They are just in the train.
What's interesting about what you're saying is in the power research, they say that individuals who believe that they're powerful, not that they're trying to take advantage of anyone, but like understand that they innately are equipped to handle situations. That's what I mean by power. They see more opportunities. Whereas individuals who don't have that power, who are insecure, who are they allow fear to just get inside, they actually see more threats. And so what's interesting about that is if you feel powerful, you're going to see more opportunities. You're going to see what's possible. Whereas if you aren't like that, you're going to see the threats. And because your focus is on the threat, you restrict, you're not as creative, and you can't think outside of the problem. So it's natural for one to be sucked into victimhood and blame or to shift responsibility. So what I hear from your story is because of how you grew up and because of, the reinforcement that you got from several of your coaches, parents, mentors, all that, you've centered yourself into a form of power that you have around you. You trust your ability to make things happen. And because that's there, you see more opportunities naturally because you've encountered threats before and you've gotten through them. So there's a lot of evidence in your history that is conscious or unconscious, but that allows you to only see what's possible, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and for me, I also struggled with that a lot because the person I was, in the sense of making decisions which I thought other ones wanted me to make, also created this thing of that I was doing a sort of play to everyone, like I'm doing good and I'm successful, etc., but not doing what I wanted to do. And going through all that and working on yourself and acknowledging it and changing it, it's also that I'm now became on a certain point where actually it doesn't matter anymore what other people think or say, or because everyone is in their own life, in their own train, as I just said, and my friends always call me Mr. Worldwide because I'm traveling a lot. But Mr. Worldwide is actually Pitbull.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys better communicate.
And I love Latin music, so in that sense it's funny. But a few years ago I saw a video somewhere on socials about it from him where he also mentioned, like, we are so strangely wired because you just got a newborn, so congratulations on that again. But if there is a baby and you start trying to do something, even walking, everyone is supporting. Like, oh yeah, let's do it. And if it then goes wrong, everyone is like, oh, try it again. And that video resonates so much because if you start your own business or if you want to switch jobs or what else, also in your private life, people will always tend to first say, have you thought about this? Should you do that?
Yeah.
this, that's, instead of like, oh, cool, yeah, you have the age, you have experience, try it. And if it doesn't work, try it again.
Yeah.
Keep on trying. Why don't we support each other?
Which goes back to the interdependence that we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome, man. And a thing I like about you and love about you is your intentionality and your heart-centeredness with leadership. Why do you think that that's so important? And what are a couple ways that you instill that both in yourself, and then what do you teach your leaders how to do that? Like, what do you do there?
I think there's somewhere where I still need to work on and grow, because I have the feeling, and maybe that's downplaying myself as well, but I have so much to learn myself still, and I do everything for the first time for my feeling. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy how people talk and how people feel like working with me. So I would like to open up there more about like my thinkings, my behavior, how I approach things. Yeah. But yeah, there's also why coaches are that important for me, because I want the feedback as well. I want that support as well. So this is a difficult one for me.
Right. Well, one of the things that you've talked about before is your inner child work, right? What importance do you think that has to how someone shows up as a leader? And for those of you for those that are listening that don't know what that is, how have you come to understand it?
So for me, inner child, you could say it's gut feeling, but it could also, I would also resonate with it like it's the real you, the one who's not thinking, the one who's playful, the child in you, like really the inner child. Like when you're young, you don't know rules, you don't know anything, you just do. Yeah. And because of the changing behavior of doing things for others to look good, be better, and not listening to the things I wanted, I was pushing it away. So by understanding who I am, who I got to be, doing the work, I realized that it was really suppressing like my spontaneous thoughts, my spontaneous decisions. So yeah, I think there is a big thing for me, that nowadays I'm working and listening way more with my inner child. Yeah. And not enough still, but it makes life way easier because it can be that easy. Yeah. Just if your body is saying full yes on something, why shouldn't you do it? Why are you gonna play yourself the card like, oh yeah, but maybe this, or maybe they will think this? No, it's your life. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Mm-hmm. But if you never did it, it will never happen. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah,
inner child work and shadow work are very synonymous for me. They're very like on the same path. And I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but shadow work basically originated with Carl Jung's work in the 1930s or 40s, somewhere around there. But basically, your shadow is these qualities that you don't think are socially acceptable. So, example, you grow up and you in your environment, you try and crack a joke and your parents get mad at you for making fun of something, and they're like, we don't do that, right? And then you go to class and you crack a joke at school and the teacher says, do not do that, right? So pretty soon you start learning that maybe I can't be funny. So let me just cast that off as this is not a part of me. And so then you get older and you never incorporated it. And so now when other people are cracking jokes or being funny, that could be triggering to you and you don't know why. And inner child work or shadow work is really going back and reconnecting with those quote unquote lost parts of you to integrate back into yourself so that you're a much more diverse human being. Human beings aren't meant to be put into boxes. They're dimensional, or they're just very, very diverse. And so the more aspects that one has to themselves, the more flexible they are in the situation, because in a negotiation, there might be a different side of you that needs to come out as opposed to a one-on-one conversation, as opposed to an intimate date. You know, like to have that flexibility and range of who Gio is or who James is gives the individual more options. And we have more options. There's more strategies to play, right? And so for those of you who haven't looked into that may be something to look into, because I think it helps you in leadership, not just from a self-awareness perspective, but also equipping you with, let's just call it alter egos to step into and to utilize when the time is right.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree on that. And key in that is communication.
Yeah.
And the examples you gave, it's like somebody says you are not allowed or it's wrong, but they are not explaining the context.
Yes.
And I think there also in business, but also in relationships, I think there is where you break it or make it. So a lot of relationships are also about like how much work do you want to put into it? Do you really want to listen, and do you really want to share and be vulnerable on what you think and what you have to say, putting boundaries, etc., etc. And I experienced myself as well with my last relationship, which I had. It's like quite long ago, 4.5 years, but I'm to the day till today. I'm really thankful to her, like how she handled me in the situation I was back then.
Mm-hmm.
I was not communicating. I was on a completely other. I didn't know myself at all, and she really pushed me to make that step to gonna do something with it, because you not will end up happy if you continue like this. You need to start acknowledging that there are things you need to work on, and at that moment that's really hard, because we all, for sure, from the masculine side, it's like we cannot have emotions. We need to go. We need to be taking care of others, etc., etc. But working on my masculine and my feminine enabled me actually way more to take care of people around me. And I also have the awareness that like taking care of myself will enable me to do that. So that's also why I was easier to say in this podcast, again, like in this conversation, like, hey, if the go live is there from the US market and the Spanish market, I need to spend time with myself, on myself, to be there, to recharge, because that will benefit everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. What would you say is one of the biggest lessons you learned this last year specifically, both in business, maybe a strategy that you learned or an insight that you had really powerful, and then in your personal life?
Yeah, so this year I still come back on like, if you don't change anything today, tomorrow will be the same as yesterday. And again, complaining, we can complain. We all want to have that summer body, for example. But if we don't start sports today, then tomorrow will be the same as yesterday. And I don't want to have this job. If you don't quit your job, not start looking for the new job, then tomorrow you will still work there like yesterday. And that's so, for me this year came on a personal level, it came really up and got more and more important, because I got to learn how important routines are for me. But there's always a reason to not do it. But for who am I doing the routine? For myself. So why am I fooling myself that I'm not doing it? So I want to get there, but I'm not doing it. So do I really want to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something huge in business and in personal life. What came up for me, but also business-wise, it's like stay strong to your values, and also when it's sometimes a hard decision, it needs to be made, and that can be less nice for other people, but you need to stay in integrity with yourself.
Yeah.
Ethics are like really important if you really want to be successful in business, because you can only be successful with people. And if you don't have the same values, the same ethics, people will mistrust you or will leave, all that kind of stuff. So you will always come back in the virtuous circle, that challenges will come up, which will be problems, which will eventually be the end of the journey.
Yeah.
And you need to start over again. And as long as you don't learn it, you will not get through that roof to the next level, climbing that mountain, making sure you get to the next mountain, etc., etc.
So if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Yeah, I think we can all be superheroes, and we are already sort of.
Yeah.
And I think that starts with love and caring. So I hope to develop that even more than I already have. I have to be my own superhero.
Yeah. And that love permeates work, relationships, self, everything.
Yeah.
It encapsulates everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's a good place to begin the closure of this episode. What's something that you want to say that we haven't talked about yet, that you think, based on everything that we've discussed so far, would be the right time to say for whoever's listening?
I think what really, really loops back in everything what I said, like we are living in a society where everyone has an opinion, where everyone tries to be looking good towards the outside world. But I want everyone to know that, like, what seems to be successful for the outsiders can also be really lonely. And you always do it really for yourself. So forget the rest. Just do your thing and make sure you live your life in your fullest. Like, yeah. Opinions doesn't matter. Only if you listen to it.
Stay in your lane, shoot your shot, play your game.
Exactly.
Awesome. Gio, thank you for your time, brother. I'm so glad that you're here in Vegas, and I'm so glad that there's leaders out there like you, and I hope that those listening can learn from your experience and from what you've said here today, and take it however they need to, that can help them be better leaders and create a ripple in their communities and their families. So thank you for being an example. Thank you for sharing your wisdom today, and grateful for you.
Yeah, thank you, and keep on shining your light too, man. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate it, bro.